My business is that of a qualified intermediary. The Treasury regulations that were written to regulate this industry created certain safe harbors for facilitating these exchanges, these delayed exchanges. Before these regulations were issued, there were all kinds of crazy three-party arrangements, two-party arrangements to create an exchange. This qualified intermediary modality has become the dominant safe harbor and has spawned an entire industry of intermediaries that facilitate exchanges. So what is a qualified intermediary? Is it a person that can give you tax and legal advice? No. It needs to be a person that is unbeholden to you, neutral. Anyone that has been your agent, your attorney, your accountant, your relative, anyone that you trust and like in life is pretty much disqualified from being your intermediary because they'd be beholden to you. You would have sway over them. So your mother can't be your intermediary because she's related to you. Your employee can't be an intermediary because you are their employer. You are the master, they are the servant. The party has to be neutral, unbeholden. And that's what we do, is we act as a third-party administrator to facilitate exchanges. And while we're very good at what we do, there's a limit to how much we can do. I say to people, it takes a village to raise a 1031. And people kind of snicker, oh, that's funny. But you do need to involve your whole team. Having a great banker, a great accountant, a great real estate broker, a great title company. Having your team assembled is going to help you, because if there's a deficit on your team, someone's going to have to shore up that deficit. You don't want to have to be the person to shore up the deficit. You want to be making the most informed and correct decisions when you're doing an exchange. When you do a 1031 exchange, it's prudent to put a clause in that contract, the sale of your relinquished property, notifying the buyer and any other parties to the agreement that you're doing a 1031, affirmatively stating it, not wishy-washy, not may do an exchange. I'm doing an exchange. This is part of an interdependent plan to effect an exchange. Mr. Buyer, I'm going to be assigning my rights in this contract to my intermediary. You agree to cooperate by signing an acknowledgement that you received that written notice of my assignment to the intermediary. How can I prove that I gave you written notice if I don't get something acknowledged by you that you got that written notice? These regulations contemplate that the intermediary is either going to actually take title to your property and then sell it to the buyer, or is going to synthetically receive your property and then sell it to the buyer. Synthetically meaning we're taking an assignment of the seller's rights in the contract and then direct deeding and directing the seller to convey it to the buyer. Under the old English common law rules, an assignment was not effective until all of the other parties to the contract were given written notice. That's why we want to give you written notice, Mr. Buyer. And we want to be able to prove we gave you that requisite notice, so we want you to sign something at closing. So here's a strategy. When you're dealing with buyers and you're in the strong position, the strong negotiating position, you put it in the contract what you want them to do, you tell them what they're going to do, and then everyone agrees to it at the outset. Because sometimes you'll give a notice to a buyer at a closing table, and they don't know what an exchange is, and they're mad at the seller. Oh, you scraped the wall on the front entranceway and it wasn't fixed before closing. Or I don't like the fees that are being prorated, or whatever it is that's bothering them. They're usually exasperated, they're tired, they're worn out. Now they're at a closing and they're signing paperwork that they don't fully understand, and they can sometimes freak out, especially in a sort of resi commercial context. You want that buyer to be committed to signing your 1031 docs from the outset. If they have a tantrum at the closing table, their real estate agent can take them out in the hallway and say, look, you agreed to this in the contract. Just sign the paperwork. It doesn't affect you. It's for the 1031. So plan ahead and plan to succeed and plan to have a smooth, silky closing that goes off without a hitch.